RantCast! Hey, welcome everyone. It is Thursday night. This is the RantCast Podcast on Twitch, live on Twitch, not live other places. Thanks for joining us. I see Ribby. And tonight, unfortunately, the strange bus, Josh, is not with us. He's having some work done. That came out wrong. Yeah, he's having some technical issues, but he's getting that taken care of. Sends his regrets. And I really wish I had him here tonight because this is a big, big topic. I know that people have been commenting on this already. Let me get rid of the screens here. So Ribby's going to join us soon. Okay. Yeah. Join us when you can, buddy. Yeah, I always invite members of our community to join us on the RantCast, where we talk about topics in the world of gaming and entertainment. A little rougher around the edges than our other streams. If you're familiar with Strange Bus and his game streams, or PureQuest fans, my board game streams, our various things. So it's intended for mature audiences, of course. And we were listening to the sounds of Karl Casey at White Bat Audio. Check out his stuff on YouTube. Always good, always royalty free. We appreciate that. All right, let's douse the flames, because many more flames are going to be generated, I think, about this one. But this is one of those topics where, yeah, I wish I was maybe a little bit more savvy in this area. So let's get this going here. This is episode number 36. All right, there we go. So episode 36, Wizards of the Coast, Prez resigns. So this was the news. This is being reported all kinds of places. So I'm just going to choose one of these places in no particular order of preference. Let's bring it up here. So this is, of all places, GeekWire via Microsoft Start. Not the most glamorous of places, but Wizards of the Coast President Cynthia Williams stepping down after 2 years leading Game Giant. And this is Thomas Wild's article. So there she is. This is an old picture from 2 years ago. So as we know, Chris Cox was the president of Wizards of the Coast, WOTC, WOTC, whatever they want to call it, which was the company most responsible for, well, only responsible after a certain point in time for Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering. So probably Hasbro's two most recognizable and profitable brands after stuff like Monopoly and various licensed things from like Disney and Marvel and so forth. Well, Marvel, Disney is the same thing. Anyway, so quoting the article here, a new SEC filing reveals that Cynthia Williams plans to step down as president at Hasbro-owned game company Wizards of the Coast. So I think we've seen before already earlier in previous rantcasts that the Hasbro board of directors, I mean, she's listed as was listed as the president of Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro Gaming. And there's a vice president under her, so we're all speculating like, okay, is he going to be just automatically promoted, or are they going to grab somebody else? But anyway, this was not something that they officially announced themselves. This was from this SEC filing. No specific reason has been publicly offered for Williams' departure, which is effective April 26th. So today's the 18th. Double quote, "We're excited for Cynthia to take the next step in her career and grateful for the contribution she has made in her more than 2 years at Wizards and Hasbro." A Hasbro representative told GeekWire, "We wish her the absolute best in her next endeavor. We have started the search for our next president of Wizards of the Coast and hope to have a successor in place soon." Okay, well, there's that question answered. So they are looking for someone. So it's not an automatic promotion of the person below her. It's not like the line of succession in the U.S. government or something. Um, yeah, so Chris Cox was in her position, then he became the actual CEO of all of Hasbro because the previous CEO had died. The one guy was in that position from 2008 until 2022. He died, so they promoted. Well, they had an interim CEO for a little while, and then they promoted Chris Cox to the top. So now her position is being vacated. So after took over after stints with Microsoft's Xbox team and Amazon's finance and fulfillment departments, Williams took over from departing Wizards president Chris Cox in February 2022. A little over 2 years, Williams oversaw a period in which Wizards' flagship games Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering were both extraordinarily successful and frequently controversial. We can say that again. During Williams' time as president, Wizards released multiple major projects such as the revivals of the fan favorite settings Dragonlance and Planescape for D&D, the 100th expansion for Magic, the Western-themed Outlaws of Thunder Junction, the release of the major motion picture Dungeons & Dragons Honor Among Thieves. I did see that. It was okay. And the foundation of several new video game studios under the Wizards umbrella. Most critically, Williams presided over the official release of the D&D video game adaptation Baldur's Gate 3, which we've seen, which recently made video game history by sweeping the Game of the Year category at all 5 major award shows. Well, who cares, but yeah, it's a popular game. However, she was also present during several different incidents. I'm glad they included this, where Wizards ran up against the issues raised by generative art AI programs, including the accidental inclusion of AI art in an official D&D sourcebook. See, I remember this, and I remember all the denials, like, oh, this didn't really happen, and everything. In an official D&D sourcebook, multiple aborted video game projects, and maybe most famously the furor that arose over D&D's open gaming license, the OGL, in January 2023. Oh, they left out the Pinkertons incident with the Magic cards. Those cards got sent to the guy too early by accident, and so they sent basically some toughs to the guy's house to scare him. Yeah. More recently, Williams' Wizards underwent sudden layoffs just before Christmas, which resulted in the dismissal of at least 20 employees. 20? I thought it was way more than 20. Do they mean 20 from Wizards? Because it was like over 1,000 employees, all from all of Hasbro. They must mean Wizards of the Coast specifically. So they lost a lot of people. Wizards of the Coast was prone to controversy well before Williams' time as president, particularly in 2020. The tabletop RPG business has always seemed to invite drama, and as the industry leader, Wizards has a greater share of that than most companies in the space. However, during Williams' time as president, Wizards of the Coast has seen some of the highest highs and lowest lows in its 34-year history. At the time of writing, Wizards has yet to officially announce Williams' departure or establish who will be her successor. Yep. So it was like almost a day ago. So lots of videos on YouTube. If you look up Cynthia Williams, you'll get tons of videos. And it's tempting to say, aha, everything was her fault. Now that she's gone, the utopia, the golden age will begin. I think if anybody said that, I mean, I'm not even in like deep into the world of Magic or D&D, and I would say that would be silly to say that. Because yes, I'm sure this position has a lot of authority and so forth, the public face of the company and so forth, but I'm sure there's plenty of decisions that are made by other people above her, and there's plenty of blame to go around. So I think a lot of people are also looking to Chris Cox saying, well, he would be the one who could intervene, at any time. He allows people like her to make decisions. So yeah. And then I've also heard other people say, well, she delegates a lot. So again, any leader, whether you make the decisions yourself or whether you put somebody else in charge of that decision, ultimately at the end of the day, you're considered responsible for that. It's like, oh, you should have known better picking this or that person. So The other thing is we don't know who the successor is going to be. We don't know if the next person will be better in that role, worse, the same, or if the leadership style is the same and everybody else is the same, who's to say anything is going to change, right? So again, my thing is HeroQuest and related games. I don't really care that much about Hasbro as a company. I mean, it always sucks when somebody loses their job, but I mean, she resigned. She wasn't fired. And I'm sure someone in this position has plenty of money to fall back on, so I'm not going to get really upset about it. Don't know her personally, so anyway. But yeah, we'll see. And I'm sure there's other people in the community have stronger opinions than myself. So yeah, thanks guys. All right, let's get some of that sweet interaction going. Hey Joe Kosher. Hey Ribby. Yeah, Ribby says 20%. Joe Coger says the latest D&D movie wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. At least it was better than the one with the Wayans brother. Yeah, yeah. I watched the old D&D movie, the live action movie. Um, like I saw it years after it was out of theaters. Like it was a rental. I think I probably watched it for free, and I knew going in that it was terrible, and it was just a very mediocre film. Like I I've said it before, my experience of Dungeons and Dragons, I mean I know more now about it. I mean I own the game now. It was gifted to me by a very generous friend. I have the fifth edition, but like I'd maybe played it a couple of times. Mostly my memories are of the Saturday morning cartoon show. Like when you say D&D, that's what I think of. Or I think of, some goofy Tom Hanks made for TV movie. That's what I think of. I know it's not really like that, but I mean that's what pops into my mind. I had a couple toys when I was a kid, but I mean I never played the game. Not heavily invested. I knew about Magic. I had friends who played Magic the Gathering. I never did. I never got into it. I actually have a deck of Magic cards that I got for free. I'm looking at it right now on my shelf. I don't think I've even taken it out of the shrink wrap. But yeah, it was like a giveaway at one of these vintage like retro game shops. They're just like, yeah, you can have a deck of Magic cards. Like, okay, cool. So yeah, nothing wrong with linking it to the cartoon. Well, my thought is these franchises are around for so long. It's like who's to say you're not a real fan unless you know, embrace this specific part of it. I mean, I guess when it comes to Star Wars, I'm thinking like Star Wars are a bunch of movies, right? So if you don't like the movies and if you've never seen the movies, how can you call yourself a fan? That's kind of what I think. But, nowadays you could say, well, I watched the TV show or I watched a cartoon or I collected the action figures and that's how I'm a fan. D&D, you think, well, it's the role-playing game. It's the pencil and paper RPG. If you don't play that, then how can you call yourself a fan? But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I mean, there's books, there's comics, there's toys, there's video games. There's all kinds of things that have the D&D like seal of approval on them. Gary Gygax is deceased. He's not part of the. I mean, some people criticize the modern franchise, saying, "Oh, they're trying to erase his legacy." Say, "Oh, he was a weird guy. He was problematic. He didn't know anything. Let's just forget about him." Which seems really ungrateful to me. I mean, for any franchise. Like, how can you be embarrassed? That's like Disney saying, we don't care about Walt Disney. That's like Lucasfilm saying, we don't care about George Lucas. It's like, you kind of wouldn't be around without him. So don't do that. But anyway, there may be people out there that think like his stuff was the best. And once he's no longer involved, don't care anymore. It's like, okay, fair enough. You do have that in franchises. It could be like a band that you follow. Maybe like the lead singer gets replaced or something like that, and then you think, it's different now. It's not as good, Or maybe you grew up liking the later stuff and you like that, and you don't like the original stuff. Whatever. I'm not going to say you're not a real fan, um, because these franchises get so big, it kind of becomes impossible to embrace everything because there's too much to actually consume and actually be able to like keep it straight in your head. And two, there's so much of it that you're going to have varying quality. So you're going to have stuff that's so bad that like even the people that made it admit that it was kind of a misfire. So that happens. And I know Magic the Gathering like has changed a lot too. I mean, if you if you took out the cards that you got like in the early 90s, you're not going to be able to play those at official tournaments or whatever. Fine. Again, I'm looking at it from someone who's on the outside, who's at best a casual fan, at best a casual fan. But I wouldn't want my franchise ruined. So a lot of people have been saying Wizards of the Coast has been treating Dungeons and Dragons rather poorly. And yes, that movie was a travesty, and people quickly forgot it. They made fun of it. I can see why. The new movie, I mean, it looks like they spent a lot of money on it, and they really tried hard. But from what I understand, it was a flop. I mean, you look at the budget of a movie, and then you basically double that amount, and you think, okay, that's probably the amount that they have to surpass to make a profit, like a real profit. Because usually you think the marketing is about similar to the production budget. So it didn't quite make enough money at the box office. I watched it a long time later. I watched it for free, got it from the library, and it was like, this was entertaining. I had to look at it as it's almost like it's a tongue-in-cheek, like kind of humorous thing. Like you imagine these are role players in the world as opposed to this is like a real like medieval world where people live. Like everything's kind of jokey, but it's not like a lot of your worst, mediocre Marvel movies where everything's super serious and all of a sudden somebody cracks a joke and it's like really stupid and really cringy and you're like, "What?" and they ruin all the drama. It's like, no, this is more like they're cracking jokes the whole time. So you just get the sense like I'm not really supposed to take this too seriously. And if you kind of imagine it as like a wink and a nod to people who are playing the role playing game, you know, they don't keep it straight in character the whole time. That it kind of works. And even though I wasn't super familiar with the game, I mean, I always forget the Capcom arcade games. I played those a lot. So Tower of Doom, Shadow over Mystara. A lot of the game's lore I've sort of gotten just by playing those games, not necessarily by anything else. So it's like, okay, I know what an owlbear is. I know what a beholder is. I've heard of, magic missile and all this stuff. So it's like, okay, yeah, that makes a certain amount of sense. So yeah, not a great movie. But it has its target audience, and it seemed to hit it. But apparently, it wasn't like they haven't gotten to the point where they make those movies and just everyone will go see them, like even non-fans. Same thing with Star Wars. It's like you've got the hardcore Star Wars fans who will see it no matter what, and the next day they'll either hate on it or defend it. And then you've got other people who would just be like, I'm just going to see a movie. Let's see that. Some people may tend to shy away, thinking, "Oh, it's just that genre stuff for certain people." It's like, okay, whatever. Hey, Verg. Hey, Jacer. Don't forget about Van Sharon. Catch shit for this. I'm a Sammy guy. Oh, Van Halen or Van Hagar. Yeah, Van Halen. Sometimes gatekeeping can be good. Sounds like gatekeeping. Nothing wrong with linking it to the cartoon. Yeah. So when people talk about gatekeeping, like, I guess it depends on what you mean by that. Like when I hear the term gatekeeping, I think the way I'm used to people using that term is to say, well, I've got this fun hobby, and you, random person who is interested in it, you can't be part of it because I decide how you can like this. So it's like if you, I don't know, I'm trying to imagine something. Like somebody says, okay, I'm a Star Wars fan. I like Star Wars, I like Empire Strikes Back, and I like Return of the Jedi, and I think Return of the Jedi is the best one. And you come on and you say, well, I like Star Wars, and I think Empire is the best, and I don't like Return of the Jedi. And I go, oh, you can't be part of the Star Wars community. You have the wrong opinion. Like, that to me is gatekeeping. And, like, I won't talk to you about it, and I'll just, like, act like you're, like, beneath me. I mean, it's one thing if you're having, like, a goofy, like, little debate, but it's like, whatever. You enjoy your thing, whatever. Um, if the gate, if, but if you mean by gatekeeping, like, I want somebody to come in who has the ability to like change the franchise and like completely change it from its original trajectory. Like somebody comes in and says, Star Wars has too much violence in it. I want it to just be about philosophy. So let's take all the battles and all the fights and combat out of the movies and just write stories that are just about Jedi like sitting around and like talking philosophy. I'd be like, what the hell are you doing? That's not what Star Wars is about. I mean, you can have that. That's kind of cool. That's kind of fun. But you can't like replace all the stuff that made Star Wars what it is with that and say that's the new thing now. And you can't have that in the franchise anymore. So that'd be an example of where gatekeeping would be good to say, like, it doesn't matter whether these are like fans that say, oh, you can't be a part of my site unless you agree with, my Jedi philosophizing only view of Star Wars. So it's like the old version of gatekeeping, or like somebody at Lucasfilm, like let's say it's like a writers group and they say, or the president of Lucasfilm, and they say, okay, this is what Star Wars is going to be now. Be like, that's stupid. That sucks. If you're going to belittle fans who liked the old stuff and say you're not part of this anymore, you don't belong, this is not for you. Yeah, I'd be pissed. So if you're going to gatekeep in the sense of like keeping people out who are going to like ruin it, then I'd be okay with that. I'd be fine with that. Now, people will always say, well, it doesn't matter what you as a fan think. It doesn't matter what's actually good art or good entertainment. It doesn't matter. None of that matter. All that matters is, does it make money? But I would say to that is lots of things can make money. Like you can make money like selling like adult entertainment and gambling. Like that's like surefire money. But does everything have to be that? What if you just want to tell a story about space wizards? Can you do that? It's like, no, no, no. It's better to make money, these other ways. It's like, we know you can make money that way. Are you going to continue doing this? If you're not going to do that, just forget about it. Go do something else. Sell burgers. I mean, burgers make money, but do we need a Star Wars burger? So yeah, and I get it. People will invest money in what they think is going to make them the most profit. Like, okay, fine. But as me as a customer, I'm going to say, you know what? I liked Star Wars. It was kind of fun. You're not doing that for me anymore. I'm just going to walk away. I'm not going to spend my money on this anymore. I'm not going to support it. I'm not going to tell people to go buy it because I think it's lost its way. It's not. It's not what it was. It doesn't attract me anymore like it used to. And I can still have my hobby somewhere, but I'm just not going to be actively supporting it. So I think that's fine. And I think if someone wants to call that like toxic fandom, then they can just go jump in a lake, I guess. All right. So yeah, so the second movie, Honor Among Thieves, not bad. But if you're not a fan at all, you might just think, well, this is kind of a quirky comedy, but what's so funny about this? You might not get into that. But yeah, if you've ever played any kind of role-playing fantasy game, you'll probably get enough of the jokes that it'll be entertaining. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of like teenagers and like middle-aged guys like just joking around with each other and having an adventure. Yeah, I don't have a big opinion about Van Halen. It's funny because a lot of like in the 80s, I was listening to like 60s and 50s music. So like I'm always a few decades behind. So like I was listening to like 70s stuff after that in the 90s. I mean, I listened to some of the 90s stuff. You couldn't help it. The popular stuff, not necessarily the stuff that people look at now and say, "Oh, that was the groundbreaking stuff at that time." And so I got into the 80s music probably in the 2000s. So like the 70s and the 80s, like I've heard a lot of it now, but I mean at the time like when it was first popular, I wasn't necessarily listening to it. I mean, I knew it was out there. So yeah, all the people that had like Iron Maiden shirts and AC/DC and Def Leppard and all that, I was just like, okay, fine, yeah, you like that stuff, that's cool. I didn't have concert tickets, not that I could have afforded it. So, but I can appreciate it now. Let's see. Elberg says the movie may have made some more money if they hadn't had the whole OGL debacle a few months before its release. Yeah, see, that's the thing. If you have anger towards a company, it can affect other products. Very true, 100% true. Now I wonder, were there people that refused to buy HeroQuest because they were pissed about the OGL? Actually, yes. There were people like that. My co-host, for example, he was thinking about buying a bunch of HeroQuest stuff, and then he was like, "Nah." He ended up getting gifts of some stuff anyway later, so it kind of didn't matter. But it was like, yeah. I mean, it can definitely happen. So, I mean, I've basically stopped spending money on Lucasfilm stuff like a long time ago. Not because I thought that, they were evil for trashing the franchise, but it was disrespectful and it sucked. And so I'm happy not to support a company when I think they're doing us wrong. But yeah, the other stuff, it's like, man, it's very questionable. So, I mean, everybody makes their decisions. So if somebody's like boycotting a company, like and it's tough when you've got these huge companies like Disney or Microsoft where they own so much stuff and they influence so much stuff. It's hard to like really boycott everything that they sell, like not support them in any way, shape, or form. Um, so I get it if people like, they're pissed at the company, but they don't completely quit cold turkey. It's like I get that, but complain and don't just, I mean, make some at least some token effort is my thought. But I know that people do it in different ways, so I'm not going to attack somebody because their idea of a boycott is different. However, I do remember back in the day where people would say, "Man, this new Star Wars movie sucks." Okay, so but you're still going to see it at the theater 4 times, and you're still going to buy it on DVD, and you're still going to buy all the toys associated with it. So you're not doing anything different. You just say it sucks, but it's like you have no control over the money that you spend on entertainment. Like you're still going to just like buy everything. I don't know. It just comes out weird. It's like it's one thing to say, well, it's not my favorite. It wasn't as good as the last one. It's could have been better, but yeah. So I'd say, well, maybe nowadays, like I feel so free to do that. It's just like, yeah, you know what? The movie comes out in the theater, I'm not going to pay to see it. I'll wait till it comes out on video. It's like, oh, well, you gave them your money when you bought the video. No, I didn't buy it. And I didn't pirate it either. I just went to the library and watched it for free. My taxes already paid for that copy. So sure, I watched it and left a negative review, or positive review if I was wrong. I can admit that too. So since these companies do care about money, I think you as a customer, you do have a say in it. Now, there's a big other discussion about this, about companies that have venture capital, companies that care about their ESG scores, stakeholder capitalism, all this other stuff that I don't necessarily know a lot about. I just know what people say. And it's like, okay, if there's ever a company where the customers are kind of like not their priority, it's like they shouldn't be surprised if the customers walk away if they're not catering to those customers. Like they're trying to impress somebody else that's not the customer. Of course, you could say, well, maybe a company that gives them a whole bunch of free money for promoting certain ideologies, like that's actually their real customer, not the guy who buys the thing from the store, the product. You could argue that too. So I don't know. There's always this discussion of, well, how can these companies stay profitable if they constantly screw over their customers? Well, maybe you are not necessarily the customer they're most concerned about. That could be true too. I don't know as much as some people, so I'm not pretending that I know all of that goes on. More comments. Thanks everybody for your comments. ACDC with Bon Scott and then with Brian Johnson, says Joe Kosher. Big example is people. Oh, yeah, you guys are on the same wavelength. We're talking about this stuff. So he says, big example, people who started listening to Metallica after watching Stranger Things, and longtime fans trying to say they weren't real fans since they weren't there from the beginning. Well, let me just say something here. I did not listen to Queen, okay, the band Queen. I don't think I'd even heard of them until Wayne's World. And honestly, I did not think anything of them. Like when they're in the car and they're listening to Bohemian Rhapsody, I thought that was very silly. Like I didn't think much of it at all. And they played it at sporting events. And it's like, yeah, who cares? It's just the song. I got into Queen because of Highlander. I like watching the Highlander movies, which I enjoyed a lot. And well, the first one at least. I tried to like the second one. I admit now it was a long shot. The TV series, at least the first maybe 3 seasons, were pretty decent. Kind of lost its way a little bit after that. The second series was terrible. The other movies were horrible. But Highlander was infused with the Queen soundtrack, and so I associated it with that in my mind. That got me to like it, but I was just listening to it as like a Highlander type soundtrack. But then I went out and I got some of their albums. I think it was first I just got like classic Queen, and I got like I didn't have greatest hits, but I mean I just started getting some of their other albums going, "Oh yeah, I really like this music. It's pretty good." Again, I didn't grow up with it, listening to it. I didn't go to concerts. Freddie Mercury died, and it's like, who's Freddie Mercury? Like, I didn't even know. Like, that's how out of touch I was. So I don't fault people who get into franchises like kind of the back way. If people watch Stranger Things and they like Metallica because of that, fine. Not all of us, because otherwise you just have a fan base that just starts at one point in time, and then those people get old and they die, and then that's it. It's gone. Only the people that saw Shakespeare perform live can like Shakespeare. Like, I don't agree with that. They might have like the deepest experience of it as a fan, but I mean, when I went to school, I knew guys that were like younger than me, 5, 6, 7, 8 years younger than me who liked the same stuff I did. And it's like, what? This stuff came out like when you were a baby. It's like, oh no, I found it, I liked it. It's like that's cool. So I don't judge people, just because they were born the wrong time, or they came in the back way. I mean, I've seen a lot of movies where I saw like some sequel or spin-off or remake first, and then I checked out the original. I was like, oh, this is actually like better, and so it can go the other way around. Strange Bus and I have this discussion all the time about Star Wars. Like, you could say a lot of people grew up with Episode One, so the Phantom Menace for them is Star Wars. So that's their favorite one because that's the one that they saw when they were a little kid, and they don't like Star Wars or Empire or Jedi because that's old and that was before their time. Yes, there are people like that, but there's other people who, and I've met them, where they grew up with that, but then at a later time they saw the other ones and they were like, oh, that's good too, or maybe actually that's even better. I liked the prequels. I like the originals even better, and that's fine. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that think Return of the Jedi sucks. Fine. When I was a really little kid, I was like, no, like I would have been offended if you said that because that was my favorite movie. Now I can admit it. I'm not so insecure that I need everybody to pretend they like the same things I do. It's like fine. It's okay. I like some of the things that you like. I just rank them in a different order. The only Highlander is the first one. Yeah, I agree. Let's see. BlackRock pushing DEI. Yeah, that whole thing. That whole thing. See, it's so weird because I remember being a young person and we'd always have this debate. These soulless, evil corporations that don't care about anything, all they care about is profit. And I think kind of in the background was like, yeah, but what if you could have a corporation, but they did care? They did have a heart. They did do good things with their money, like the robber barons. They steal all the money, they exploit all the workers, and they keep it all for themselves. Ha 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 ha. This I don't know, cartoon caricature of capitalism, the evil fat cats. But it's like, oh, but what if they gave back to the community? So then the robber barons, they feel guilty, they become philanthropists, they bring back their image. So the way I see that stuff now is that companies, they do a lot of shady stuff. They're really ruthless and cutthroat, and they couldn't care less about individual people, but they want their image to be virtuous in the public eye. They want to be thought of as an ethical company, so they give money to certain causes, or at least they, I don't know. There's so many different things you could say. You could say there was greenwashing, where it's like, oh, we give all this money to like environmental causes to save the planet. It's like, isn't that great? Because we've been doing all this pollution, because a lot of these companies do that. And then you look more deeply into it, and it's like, well, they're not really saving the environment. They're just, getting like these awards and doing these little tiny like token things. And really, they're just as bad as they ever were. And so the the image of like the good, helpful company that's saving the planet just kind of like, it's just kind of a facade. So I guess a lot of this stuff, I have a lot of suspicion about it. I just presume that, yeah, maybe they're doing that. Yeah, I mean, you would think if you are a company that exists to make profit, then you should try to make profit, you know? And if you have shareholders that you're beholden to, well, then you should be beholden to them. That's why I mean, they exist and you're supposed to cater to them. If people invest in your company, well, then you should, you know, if you're going to take the money, then you should do what, they ask you to do. But where's the integrity? Again, go back to the gambling and adult entertainment thing. It's like, yeah, well, there's lots of ways to make money. Why not just do it the most crooked way possible, the most surefire, dumbed down, easy way to do it? Don't have any integrity. Don't have any principles. Who cares? Never say no. Just take the money and just do whatever you want. And so in that mold, you can't complain if like it's Bill Gates giving you the money or it's Elon Musk giving you the money. Who cares? Just somebody gives me money. He wants me to put on a clown suit and do a dance. I'll put on the clown suit and do the dance. I mean, it's very mechanical and very weird. So I guess I would just say, I don't know. At some point, you just have to say, these are my principles, and maybe I'll turn stuff down because it violates those principles. So if I'm a toy company, I'm not going to suddenly, like, I don't know, start selling drugs. It's like, I'm just going to say, you know what? That's not what we're here for. Drug kingpin guy gives me a lot of money to do that. I'm just not going to do it. And don't get me started on the laws because a lot of these companies are so wealthy they can basically buy off politicians, and maybe they can do it legally. It's not considered, bribery or corruption, and they can get laws passed that favor them and all this stuff. And it's like, well, it was possible for them to do it in the laws of the universe, so it must be okay. It's like, I can still say it's evil. I can still say it's wrong, that it's unethical, even if they call it ethical. Cheers, dead gamer. So yeah, there's plenty to call out. So a lot of this stuff though, we as the customers don't know about it. Maybe there's a whistleblower, maybe there's an editorial, and it's like you don't want to believe it because you're like, oh man, this company's done so many good things, they have so many good products. I don't want to believe that they're corrupt. They're corrupt. Dang it, And it's like, okay, so what do I do? Do I take my business elsewhere? So yeah, you can look up BlackRock, you can look up all that stuff. It's really disheartening to hear that kind of stuff. Joe Coger says kind of a certain brewery with a certain ad campaign. Yeah, well, see, that's the other thing. When people talk about corporations, whenever someone says, like, let's just use an example of Hasbro. Let's say I'm going to be critical of Hasbro. In fact, I am critical of Hasbro. Let's say, they've really made some mistakes. I can say 100% I agree. They've made some mistakes with Wizards of the Coast. Absolutely. But someone will criticize me and say, well, how can you say that? They are a multi-billion dollar company. They exist to make profit. Why would they ever do anything to jeopardize their profit? You don't know anything. You're not in the industry. You can't say that. Everything they do is, calculated and precise, and you should just trust that they're doing what's right. You're just a dumb customer. Like, okay. But when you see them losing money, when you see them firing people, when you see leaders resigning, I mean, not because of health or anything like that. Of course, who knows? Maybe we'll find out there was some specific reason as opposed to, like, I know people are going to jump to that conclusion. It was too stressful, things were going bad, maybe she was pressured to resign. We don't know that. That's just me speculating. But a lot of times when a company goes through multiple like leaders, not just CEOs, but multiple leaders in a short period of time, you think there's something internally going on that this is happening. Maybe it's a toxic work environment. Maybe the leaders they're getting are not as competent as they want, or maybe the decisions are impacting the company so hard that they're desperate. It's like this leader is not working. We got to get him out of there, you know. And I think that's when, and I'm not going to say, anything that I don't believe here, but like when Carmine left um, Avalon Hill, some people were like, well, maybe he wasn't a good enough leader, for Avalon Hill. Maybe that's why they got rid of him. Or maybe he wouldn't play ball. Maybe they wanted him to do something and he didn't want to do it. Now, none of that has come to light. Nobody's ever said that. So we can't necessarily say that that's really what happened. Maybe it was just a cost saving measure. It's like, okay, he and Avalon Bill are spending all this time talking to the community. We don't need that. Let's cut these guys out. Who knows? Maybe that's what they did. But when a leader gets cut, you always kind of suspect. It's like in the back of your mind, like, I wonder if they were cut out because they were considered a liability. You know, Jacer, yes, the last CEO of Wizards of the Coast did get promoted to CEO because the guy that was in there since 2008. I'm gonna look up his name. I'm sorry. Um, Hasbro CEO died. Um, I think it was cancer that got him. Yeah, Brian Goldner. He was the Hasbro chairman and CEO from 2008 to 2002, I believe. Chris Cox was the president of Wizards of the Coast, again, owned by Hasbro. So so Brian Goldner stepped down and he died. And then they had an interim CEO, which is common for these companies. They have somebody else, in the office until they pick a new one. So then Chris Cox got promoted from president of Wizards of the Coast to CEO of Hasbro. And I know when Chris Cox got put in, a lot of people were like, "Oh man, this guy," because they had a lot of negative feelings about Wizards of the Coast, how they handled Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. So they're like, "Oh man, now this guy's going to charge of the whole company? Great." So and Cynthia Williams, she was formerly at Microsoft, and again, people are mad at Microsoft for various things, but she was involved with Xbox and Amazon. So yeah. But I think one of the criticisms when she came in was, oh, great, now they're going to push really hard for video games and they're going to move away from physical games because the problem with physical games is people can just buy them once and just mod them forever for free. I mean, as long as you can buy paper and pencil, you can keep on modding them for free. Whereas video games, you can, put them up on services like Steam and then you can yank them away. You can delist them from consoles. You can put in stuff, safeguards that prevent people from modding, or at least, ban them if they try to use a mod. You can shut servers down. You can insert DLC. There's a lot more ways video games can be exploited to like shut down uh, player agency and community stuff. Like you can control it more tightly. So people were afraid of that, and I think they're still afraid of it. I'd heard recently that a lot of D&D books have gone on sale, like discounted, like 20%, 30% discount, which isn't that much. But I mean, my image of D&D was always big expensive books. You know, these guys like they work, 9 to 5 jobs so that they can buy a whole bunch of expensive books and expensive miniatures. You know, and that's the hobby. It's like, okay, well, if the stuff's discounted now, anybody can get it a lot easier. But I mean, 30%, it's not much. Yeah. Oh, Yeah, I got to get back to these comments. There can be only one. Yes, thank you, Jacer. Joe Koger says, I didn't really know about Queen until Flash. Defender of the Universe. Yep. Yeah, it was funny. Jacer says, they may not get all the inside jokes and deeper meaning, but they are still fans. They need a good image. They still need to pander to their investors. Or lobby to change, amend the laws. Didn't the last CEO? Okay, yeah, Chris Cox. So be careful when you're looking him up online. Chris Cox, it's Cocks, not Cox. So anyway, I guess if you're a D&D fan or Magic the Gathering fan out there, you might be celebrating right now because you might be like, I didn't like Cynthia Williams's policies. I didn't like the direction she was taking, and she's somebody else's problem now. But at the same time, I bet you're also still a little bit nervous because you don't know who's going to take over next. Maybe the next president of Wizards of the Coast will be even worse for your franchise. I hope not, for your sake. And this gets back to my question, like, do I selfishly just ignore everything except for HeroQuest? Well, I don't think it's selfish. It's just the fact that I don't really care that deeply about some of these other franchises. I mean, I don't want your franchise to be ruined, but I mean, if they totally change Magic the Gathering, I mean, it's like, I don't even play it, you know. But we are all affected as HeroQuest fans when Wizards of the Coast does poorly because if they're losing Hasbro as a whole money, then they're going to have to like make cuts, right, to make up for it. So that's going to hurt Avalon Hill, you know. And when Wizards of the Coast does well, it's like, okay, they might decide, we don't need this HeroQuest stuff so much. Let's divert resources over to Wizards of the Coast. I'm just imagining how that would work. So if they lost 20 employees and Avalon Hill only lost 2, it's like, okay, so I guess in a way I want Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering to do well enough that the company, like, it doesn't hurt the company so much that they decide to cut corners other places. You know what I'm trying to say? Anyway, I guess part of me thought that the idea of Hasbro owning a company like Wizards of the Coast and just letting them do their own thing was a good thing because, like, who wants to be meddled with by some boss that's far removed from what you do, who doesn't know the day to day, like they don't have their ear to the ground, they don't know what the fans want, the ordinary everyday fans, like they're off in their tower, trying to do CEO stuff. Now you could say, oh, Chris Cox, he was part of Wizards of the Coast, he knows what it's about. Kind of makes sense. Like if D&D and Magic the Gathering are your top earners, generally, and he's in charge, it's like, okay, but as time goes by, he may start to lose touch. On the other hand, what if you have your little division, your little subsidiary, and you're the parent company and you have them doing their thing and they're just ruining it? At what point do you step in and say, okay, I don't know how to run this thing, but let's get somebody else in there that knows what they're doing because you obviously don't. That's what I sort of see the situation with Disney and Lucasfilm. Like, I know Kathleen Kennedy was George Lucas's handpicked successor, but he's not even happy with the direction things are going. And I know George wasn't always right, but it's like at some point Disney should be like, Kathleen Kennedy, you need to resign. You need to spend more time with your family. Let's get somebody in there that actually cares about Star Wars, knows Star Wars, and can do it right. Because clearly you're not doing what the fans want to pay for, like most of the fans. I mean, you've got a subset of fans that'll just buy anything with the label on it. They don't care. Those people we don't have to worry about. And then there's the people that claim they hate everything and don't buy it. It's like, okay, we can ignore those people. What about everybody else in between? So, like, that's what I can imagine them doing. And I think that's the right time to step in. But them just saying, okay, Lucasfilm, you've got your little thing that you're doing here, seems to be working pretty well. You just go ahead and keep on doing that. You know, we'll send you the funds that you need or whatever. That's clearly I'm not the CEO of a company, but that's how I imagine it working. Like it makes a certain amount of sense. And as a leader, yeah, you can't do everything. It's right to delegate, but you got to make sure you delegate it to the right people, and you got to make sure that you set the right expectations, have the right policies, because if not, then you're going to get bad people in place or incompetent people. They're going to screw everything up, and then guess what? It's your fault because it happened on your watch. So yeah, and then the image thing. Yeah, when it comes to the companies, the problem is that politics is so divided. So if you decide to stake your claim in a cause, you better be sure that that's a cause that all your customers or the vast majority of paying customers want. Because if not, you're going to lose a lot. Yeah, like a certain seller of uh, alcoholic beverages. Yeah, I mean, like I was saying before, these corporations, they do make huge mistakes and they admit that they make huge mistakes. So we can't always just trust them to always do the right thing. And it's a fact that some of these leaders, they make short-sighted decisions that will maybe profit them in the short run. Maybe they think, hey, I'm only going to be with this company another few years. I'll just do what'll give me a big paycheck and then I'm out of here. Good luck, company. You can deal with the aftermath the next 10 years. So you can't always trust the leaders to make the right decisions either. We definitely have examples of bad leaders or incompetent leaders or whatever. They were in over their head. And since we do have a free flow of information, I mean, sort of. I mean, can you really trust mainstream media? Can you really trust sensationalist, third-party media? You have to be very discerning. Can't believe everything you read on the internet. I know, shock, horror. Wow, never knew that. So the image that these companies project, I guess I'm just suspicious of it from the outset. A healthy skepticism. And if I find out something, earth-shattering, it's like, I should have known. I should have known. I wanted to believe that they were an ethical company, but maybe they weren't. So, am I saying Hasbro's an unethical company? I'm not saying that, but they have done some things that were questionable and shady in the past, for sure. And was it all one person's fault? Doubt it. Usually, there's a lot of people that let the thing happen, or want it to happen, or look the other way. And a lot of times, one person takes the fall. Could that have happened in this case? Possibly. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to get into a philosophical, moral debate with people either. But when I was growing up, we would have these debates, like people my age. It's like you get this impression that there's people out there that think whatever the law says is right. And it's like, really? I mean, okay, there's this baseline thought that it's like, well, I'll obey the law because I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to pay a fine. So yeah, I'll obey the law. But you automatically think that the law is right. And then it's like, what? I mean, laws can change. You make laws, you change laws, but there's always some philosophical, moral principle behind a law. You might not agree with that, and so you might think, well, this law is unjust. It should be changed. So how do you change the law? So there's a process of changing a law, whether you live in um, a democratic type of society, representative republic, or it's a dictatorship. Well, write a letter to the dictator. Try to get on his good side. Maybe he'll change the law. Or you start a revolution and you become the king and you change the law. There's always a way to change the law. It might be very, very difficult, but if the law is wrong, then you change the law, right? So easier said than done. So yeah, morality doesn't come from the law. The law is just a reflection of somebody's morality. And a company policy is even more further removed from morality because the policy is a rule that you follow within the company, and presumably it's towards the company's goals. What are the company's goals? To stay in business, to make a profit, And if they run afoul of the law, there could be penalties. They could be fined. They could lose reputation in the eyes of their customers, in the eyes of the public. They might invite unwanted regulation from civil governments. Customers might boycott their products. They might be investigated. There's all these reasons why, even if they don't care about anything, they don't care about right and wrong, good and evil, whatever. They have no ethics at all. But they're afraid of those consequences, so they will design policies that will make sure they follow all those laws, or at least not get caught breaking them, right? So it's like, okay, so there's a reason why they do those things. And if the laws change, they can change the policies. Or if this policy is not working, it's not achieving the goal that they want, they change it. And I mean, corporate scandals happen, where people are told, go ahead, do this thing. We know it's wrong, but do it anyway, because we want you to do that. So then the people do it. At some point, maybe they get caught. Consequences happen. So that's not what this is, but the fact is it does happen. So we can't just assume, well, whatever a company does, they must have had a good reason to do it. It must have been the right decision. It's like, nah, it could have been the wrong decision. 90% of it is not getting caught. Yeah, I mean, I'm not automatically going to assume the worst. There's certain charity that you can have. Say, well, maybe they had a good reason. But I'm more likely to give that charity to individuals than to like big, powerful conglomerates. Like a corporation or a government. I think there is a certain mentality, and people who've studied it could say more about this. Like when you're in an organization, you might say, well, I didn't do anything wrong, but I didn't stop the people around me from doing anything wrong either. Or it's the system's too big, I can't really change it, so I'm just going to let the bad things happen. And then the more people think that way, then the more it never changes. Now, you could have leadership in a group, and the leadership makes everybody below them afraid, like, you better not go against what we say or you'll get in trouble. So people are afraid to speak up when they see things going wrong. That could be the case. So there's a lot of reasons why change doesn't happen or scandals go on in companies. But again, is this really a scandal? We don't know. But there's always a suspicion when a leader resigns. Of course, what's the alternative? You just never resign. You stay in that position until you die. So the previous CEO, he had the job until he got sick. He died. Okay, he doesn't have the job anymore. Simple as that. That's life. If you get fired, you get let go, you get downsized or whatever. That could be because your services are no longer required, or because you did something wrong, you screwed up at your job, you weren't very good. There's a lot of reasons. If you resign, you think, well, it could have been a personal thing. Could have been, you just decided, I don't want this job anymore. I did it for a couple years. It's time to move on. On the other hand, we do know that there are also jobs where everybody might be breathing down your neck saying, either you resign or you're going to be fired. Like, those are your choices because you need to get gone. So we don't know if that's what happened in this case, and we might not find out. I'm really curious, but yeah, every time a CEO resigns, or a president, because she was not a CEO, she was the head of Wizards of the Coast, but Wizards of the Coast is a smaller division within the bigger company. I mean, if Chris Cox resigned, it'd be like, why did he resign? I'm really curious. What did he do wrong? Or what was, what happened? So that's a natural curiosity, because we've seen this happen enough times in other companies that it's not always because they screwed up, but sometimes it is. So we're curious. So whatever they say about it, I'm sure they're going to dress it up to try to, say the best things about it they can. Sometimes CEOs or presidents get let go, and the person really screwed up, and the company will throw them under the bus and say, "Yep, they were terrible. They did all these bad things. That's why they're gone." And it may not even be because they are remorseful for it, but it's just they want to put the blame on that person and say, "Yeah, you didn't find it out. We found it out. We're the ones who exposed him. We got rid of him." Because it's better for their image to say, "Yeah, we had this bad leader. We got rid of them. Thank goodness. Now everything can get back to normal." Rehabilitate their image in the public. Now again, we don't know Cynthia Williams. We don't know. So I'm not worried that she's going to sue us, but I'm just saying, like, we honestly don't know yet why she resigned, unless that's come out in the last hour. So we'll see what happens. We'll see. I'm more concerned about the effect of the company. Why she resigned is just more of a curiosity. I mean, unless it really was a corruption thing, then it's like, whoa, I'm glad that came to light. I hope they clean that up. I mean, it invites scrutiny on a company if there is a scandal, a public scandal. Then they have to make at least token changes to say, like, we're really gonna clean up our act. I mean, if there was a scandal, would that be the reason why Wizards of the Coast was doing poorly, or was it just, yeah, there's a lot of different decisions you could have done, a lot of different strategies, and maybe she didn't support the right ones or appoint people that delegate to people that knew what they were doing. They could have made better decisions. Who knows, right? Because there's always a possibility that classic fans, I mean, just for devil's advocate, there's always a possibility that classic fans are wrong, right? It's always possible that actually the Star Wars trilogy is very unprofitable. You'll only make a very small amount of money. And the real money is with, um, I don't know, Ahsoka and Galaxy's Edge and, like the newer products. Like that's where the real money is. So the smart money is to support that stuff. Just exploit the heck out of that. Forget that dump that other stuff. Classic fans, they hardly count for anything. Maybe that's the right thing. I doubt that it is. And I think as a fan of the old stuff and not a fan of the new stuff, I hope that they don't do that because I don't care about that new stuff at all. So I have a personal stake in it. But as far as from the company standpoint, if they really believe and they really see that, those fans are wrong and should be ignored, then they'll do that. But in a lot of these cases, sometimes it just seems so obvious to us. It seems so obvious that their main customer base has a point and they ignore that to their peril. Like, okay, so the people who grew up with Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back and True the Jedi are grown now and have jobs and have money and in a lot of cases have kids, maybe even grandkids. And so it's like, why would you not want to cater to those people? Because they spend money, they buy products, they introduce those products to another generation. Same thing with HeroQuest. Like the people who grew up with HeroQuest are now in a position to spend more money on it if they want to, and introduce it to a new audience. If you make a new version of HeroQuest that's just for toddlers, okay, you're going to get those toddlers because parents will buy it for their kids. Oh, it's a stupid game, but you want it. I'll buy it for you, my child. Like, okay, that makes a certain amount of sense. But then once they grow out of it, they don't want it anymore. So now you got to sell it to the next generation. Like, that's a strategy. I'm not saying they're going to do that, but if you make a product that becomes a franchise that appeals to a lot of different people, a lot of different generations, like you can do that. You can. So I mean, I know that they have Star Wars products that are geared towards like little kids, and there are ones that are more niche. So I mean, if they have Star Wars romance novels, like okay, fine, not everybody's going to buy those. Only certain people will buy it. But if you think it's worthwhile, if you're going to get the romance novel crowd to buy those things, go for it. I guess I'm not going to buy it. I'm not interested in it. But yeah, merchandising. Merchandising. Spaceballs meme here. Yeah, I knew that was coming. I should have known. It's all about the merchandising. So with a board game, make a game, support it for a while, add expansions and or additions, reskins. The thing about a board game though, so with video games, it the old style of video game. So an arcade machine, you put an arcade machine in an arcade, people play that. That was the old model, and then eventually it stops being profitable, or the machine breaks down and you don't repair it. You throw it in the junkyard, or a collector gets it, and that's it. It's gone. Game cartridges. Okay, so now you've got consoles. People buy the consoles. They buy the cartridges. You move on to the next thing. Okay, we're not going to make Nintendo anymore. We're going to make Super Nintendo now. So all the people that have Nintendo, it's like, what do? They throw it in the trash. They keep it. They sell it to somebody else. It's still out there. You can still plug it in and play it. Nothing's stopping you. But in the era of digital games, it's not like you can just grab your CD and just play it. It's like, oh, you got to sign into Steam with your internet connection, and oh, that game that I had, they took the servers down. It's gone, delisted. Oh, maybe I can still play it on my computer. Well, as long as it's supported. They stopped supporting it. Now what? You got to hack it and use an emulator. So the support goes away. At least with a physical game, in theory, it's still out there. As long as somebody doesn't have a house fire and it gets destroyed. So your copy of HeroQuest is out there. Somebody can have it. It might just stay on their shelf. They might play it, but they could always, take it out, write some more quests for HeroQuest, throw it up online. Somebody else who has the game, owns the game, finds your copy and goes, "Oh, that's pretty cool. Let me download that. Let me print that out." And the game keeps going. That was the HeroQuest community for 30 years, without any kind of official support. But with a video game, it's a little trickier. So, as I was saying before, like a lot of people were afraid that Wizards of the Coast was going to try to push hard to transform the perception of Dungeons and Dragons from a pencil and paper RPG based on books and physical pieces and physical games to a completely digital thing that they can more easily control, and then they could just kind of wipe the slate clean whenever they wanted and start all over. And then a new generation comes about, and when they hear D&D, they just think, oh yeah, it's an app that I download, and I got to do those in-game purchases, and I play it for 2 years, and then they erase it and start over with something totally different. Like they could do that. And then, they just have to run into some old guy online who's like, "No, Sonny, you gotta play this book, this old beat up book that's held together with duct tape that I've had since the 80s." It's like, okay, old man, let's play your weird game. You gotta throw the dice. You gotta use your hands. It's like a baby toy. Like, trust me, this is the real stuff. I'm like, okay, you know, it might be like that someday. I hate to say it, but board games are such a different experience than video games. And yes, it's come a long way, but which would you rather do? Would you rather sit down at a table with a physical board? Let's say you're playing Monopoly. Physical board, physical cards, the paper money in your hand, the little metal tokens, the little plastic hotels and silly little plastic houses, and you're rolling the dice, you're rolling the dice, and you're moving along the board, and you're sitting across the table from somebody, friend, family, random person. That's an experience. Or you're sitting at home by yourself. You put on VR goggles and you're just kind of waving your hands around or waving a joystick around, and digital representations of those things are moving around. Like, no offense to anybody who likes my streams, but would you rather play with me, or would you rather like play at an actual table with people? Like, I'd rather be doing that. But the fact is, it's hard to do that. Even after, COVID, things open up, it's hard to get together with people, sit down, play HeroQuest for 2 hours or whatever, pick up where you left off, play it for 3 hours, 4 hours. Somebody's in another country. It's like, oh yeah, I need you to get on a plane and get here and play. So we do our thing. But I mean, I try to create an experience as close to the physical board game as I can. Some of it we just can't do. I mean, I used to just roll the dice on screen for everybody, and that was cool, but it's like there's less interaction for people. So letting people roll their own dice digitally, thanks to Ribby and MentorBot, it's a great thing. It's fun. If I could somehow rig it up so that people could control the pieces as well, that'd be even cooler. So I mean, we've got people trying to sell us on like Foundry mods and stuff like that. I mean, we've tried the tabletop simulator thing, but I mean, I'm pointing the camera at the actual physical game. So I'm at least putting it in your mind that this is the experience we're having. It's not quite the same. But anyway, if you can make a video game that's really great. You can make Baldur's Gate 3. But is Baldur's Gate 3 the same as playing Dungeons and Dragons at a table? No, it's not. Your imagination has infinite budget, you know. So, I mean, but some people don't like that. They want the game to, keep track of the stuff, the potions and the dice rolls for them. They don't want that part of the game isn't fun for them. Me, I like rolling dice. I like flipping cards over. I like lifting up the piece and moving it across the board. Even though that piece can't move on its own. It's just a piece of dead plastic. It doesn't have any personality. I could paint it, but then, oh, I got to paint it again because the colors never change. But the imagination, and the fun that you have. I mean, you can still have banter with these games. Digital games have come a long way, and I mean, I'm not playing an officially sanctioned Hasbro digital HeroQuest. I'm playing this jury-rigged version of the game using real pieces, using digital components created by fans. Like, that's what I'm doing. It's a hybrid experience. So I could see more value in that type of experience. Quite a bit here. Okay, I think we're back on the RantCast. Yeah. Talking Wizards of the Coast. Talking in general about franchises and things. Okay, we're back. All right. So let's acknowledge our comments here. Merchandising. Joe Coder says, I wish I still had my Atari 2600 in all my games. Well, the thing is, you can buy all those games back, Joe. The problem is, the collector market has driven the prices way up. So you're not going to get those things for the cheap prices you once got them. Unless there's a place that's like Board Game Geek for video games. I mean, eBay, forget it. Actually, I've had pretty good luck with like thrift shops or estate sale type places. I'm not talking about like your Salvation Army or your Goodwill type places. Because a lot of those places, they know, I mean, it's like they have the internet. They can get online. They get on some of these stores. Like I've been to stores where I bring the comic or the game to the counter and the guy doesn't even have a price tag. He's just like, and he just like types in eBay, and looks it up and sees the price and he gives me that price. And it's like, that kind of sucks. Why am I even here? Like I came here because I was hoping for a better deal. And it's like, well, he wants to make as much money as he can. Yeah, video unavailable. So refresh the stream and we should be back in business. I think we just had a slight interruption. Okay, for some reason it's... Oh, okay. This always happens. We always have some issues. Okay, I think that's better. All right, thanks guys for your patience. Let's see. Yeah, I wish I had 2600. So I had a whole bunch of Atari 2600 games. I got this shoebox full of games, and my roommate at the time, he moved out, and it was like, oh, I'll get these games to you. And then like a long time went by, and I was just like, you know what? You can have it as a gift. Here you go. Because I knew he had Atari, he had ColecoVision, and it's like, sure. It's like, sweet. I could have kept those games for myself. I didn't have an Atari, though. I didn't have a ColecoVision. Because a lot of, back then, I think ColecoVision and Intellivision both had adapters that you could plug in that let you play Atari 2600 cartridges on those rival consoles. Now that's not no big deal, but back then that was like a big deal. It's like what? Be like playing Sega games on the Nintendo console or vice versa, which now you can. Yeah. So I bought most of my retro games, thankfully, like before the prices went way up. I mean, we had emulation. Emulation was getting really, really good. But I guess something in me was like, you know what? I want to own the actual physical game. Whether it's a game that I played before, but I just didn't own it, or maybe I rented it, or I'd played it a lot and just like, yeah, I wanna just play it, with the original timing, the original controls. Even if it's more convenient to play it, in emulation or just like people today, it's like, oh yeah, I could just play Sonic 2 on a phone. It's like, yeah, but if you have the Genesis version with the actual controller, then no one can take that away from you. I mean, maybe the machine will break down, but it's possible to fix it. It's possible to repair it. You don't have to rely on Steam or some other service to like give you that game. If Xbox Live, or whatever it's called now, if they delist the game, it's like, oh no, I can't play it anymore. Or oh, my internet connection's down, I can't download it anymore. It's like, I still got it. Play it anytime I want. Don't make board game microtransactions. Well, Jacer, one of the thoughts was this. If, I'm talking about hybrid gaming. One of the thoughts was, so there's this technology that Hasbro's invested in where they embed microchips in your game pieces. And they've done things like this before. I mean, there's toys, lots of toys, in fact, that Hasbro has. Like, here's a quick example. So those action figures, it's called like the Force Link. I think it's actually been discontinued now, but it was like Force Awakens type games or toys, action figure. So you hold the action figure in your hand and you put the like bracelet on. That's the Force Link, and you turn it on. And so the chip that's inside the figure in your hand is close enough to the sensor that it'll play like the sound clips, like the voice clips of the character from the movie. Which I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly like the episode 1 toys where you get Senator Palpatine and he comes with like a dog tag that has a little chip inside it, and you put the dog tag on top of the like the little voice controller. It's like a walkie-talkie that Qui-Gon Jinn had. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan were talking in these little walkie-talkies that were like women's shavers that had just been repainted, but it's like a bigger version of that. And you put the chip on it, and it plays the sound clip. Except now the chip is so small it's embedded inside the figure. And it's actually kind of funny. There was one of these retro shops. I took my little walkie-talkie thing and I went into the store, and they had the episode 1 figures. So I just went down the line, just like listening to each of the sound effects. Probably drove the proprietor crazy. It's like, who is this weird guy? But it's like, I don't even have to take it out of the package. I can see like what each one says. It's kind of funny. And it actually lets you save some of them too. Yeah, I did that. Yep. Yeah. Now it doesn't save them forever. I think you can save like 4 different sounds, but if the battery resets, then it erases them. Did you have a good time playing OrcQuest today? Well, I didn't play OrcQuest today, actually. If you're talking about the video, that was we recorded it live, and then I put it up on YouTube after we edited it. So that was Ribby and I. But yes, I did enjoy it. Yeah, I need to talk about that next. So let me just get through the last of the comments, and thank you, Wordicon. It's time to move on. See, when I don't have a co-host, it's harder. I just get off track. Okay, Joe Kozier says, sounds like Games Workshop and all the editions of 40K and Fantasy Armies. Microtransactions. Yeah, so the idea behind the chip-based board games, or the board games that have like codes that you scan, there is a little bit of shenanigans there, because what if the online digital portion of the game gets discontinued? Like, imagine if HeroQuest didn't work unless you had the companion app. Now they got you on the hook, because what if they take the companion app away? All of a sudden the game is broken. Like, oh no, I can't do it. You might have a generation of people who don't know how to play as Zargon, and you take the companion app away, let's say in 2027. Don't quote me on that. I'm just saying, just as a hypothetical example, they take it away, and then they're like, oh crap, I can't play this game anymore. This sucks. I mean, we know that's not true, because HeroQuest itself If you open up the box and you read it, it tells you how to play as Zargon. It tells you how to make your own quests. It's already there. So Hasbro could go completely bankrupt. They could delete all their stuff from the internet, completely gone. You could still play and enjoy the game just like people did for 30 years before. Fine. But what if they design a game from the ground up that requires that digital component? Now you're going to have people that are like, okay, the servers went down, but we downloaded a copy, we hacked it, we emulated it. We're going to put it up on websites. Hopefully it doesn't get taken down. We're going to give it out on CDs at conventions. Like, we're going to do something to keep it going. It's like, okay, you know, you could do that, but there's a weakness. Now, the other problem is, yeah, I know microchips have gotten cheaper and cheaper, but if you're going to sell me like Monopoly for like 20 bucks or like 10 bucks, okay, fine. But now if you're going to sell me like digital hybrid Monopoly that has all these chips embedded in it, it's like all of a sudden the price has gone up. So is it really worth it? Maybe you're going to get some people that really want to play it like that. But at a certain point, it's like, okay, well, if you're going to spend all that money, what's the difference between that and just the video game, the Monopoly video game? But I can see them also seeing that they want the control of the digital version of a game, but they understand that they can never fully duplicate the physical aspect of the game. So they have a hybrid. So you buy the game, you've got your miniatures, you're moving them around, and then you've got like a virtual background, or there's digital stuff that happens as you play. I don't know, something like that. And I think, though, that clever players who remember the past are always going to be able to work around that and come up with their own way to get rid of the digital version of the game. Like, what if there's a game that just plays music while it's Monopoly Musical Edition. Well, what if I just get a record player and play music in the background? Oh my gosh, I've hacked the game. It's like, so it depends on what it is. Oh, a narrator. Well, guess what? I can be a narrator. I'll just write a script and I'll just like read it off, or I'll get a recording. Think of those VHS games like Nightmare and stuff. It's like, oh, my VCR broke and I can't play it. Well, guess what? Somebody recorded. They made a digital recording of the VHS tape, and you can play it on your computer, so you can still play it. So, the players are going to come up with ways to get around it, but the company has to decide, well, what's the most effective way to do it. But a lot of these digital products, they're supported for a while and they're discontinued. So in theory, you can't enjoy them the way they were intended anymore after a certain period of time, like maybe 4 or 5 years at most. And you think, well, if it's a kid's toy, the kid grows up, he doesn't care about the toy anymore. But what if he wants to give it to his kids? Well, he can't. He has to buy the new toy. Let's see. Joe Coder says, I applaud and appreciate all you and others have done to enable us to play this awesome game virtually together. Well, thank you. Yeah, and I hope other people do it too, because, someday I may not be around here doing this anymore. And it's like, I hope other people, figure out a way to do, something like this so that they can kind of keep that going. Okay, so Wardicon is asking me about OrcQuest and Ribby. Okay, so I really want to thank Ribby for being my guide in the world of OrcQuest. So here are my impressions. So OrcQuest, right now, it's kind of inaccessible. Like, you don't have to be part of the Kickstarter. You don't have to pre-order anything. I think you can still buy it. I think it's still in stock. I could be wrong about that. But last I checked, Monolith Games, you could go to their website. Well, why don't I just check it out now? You go to their website and you could just buy it for like 200 bucks plus shipping. Let me just find out. And you get 2 huge boxes, which are all of the expansions that were released for the Kickstarter. And so it's these massive boxes. It takes like 15 to 20 seconds to open each box, 10 seconds to close it. And it's all just tightly packed in there. I'm just checking the website here. Let me just show you what it looks like now, because it's been a while since I've looked at it. So this is OrcQuest, 14 plus, of course, not tested for kids. 1 to 6 players. Really, it's for 4 players. Currently in production. But where do you buy it? Oh, shop, duh. Conan. Okay, where's OrcQuest? Oh, right here. OrcQuest, Warpath, Resurrection. English, French. Okay, so if I click here, yep, I can still buy it. 165 euro. So whatever that is. Hello, young orc. Yeah, all right. Well, anyway, I'm not gonna actually order it again, but there you go. So it looks like you can still buy it. 165 euro, whatever is that. It is in US dollars. Plus shipping. Okay, so it's about 175 and some change. So that's not bad. It's not bad at all, actually. I mean, my upper limit is like $200. Okay, so for what you get, with OrcQuest for that price, you get everything that you could want. They give you a ton of like human characters, elves, and like, different sculpts of them, rat people, you get wargs, so they're like hyena dogs, there's dogs, there's barbarians, so they're humans, but they're really buff. Like the barbarian from HeroQuest, like lots of them. There's like ogres and trolls, and there's like big monsters that take up like multiple squares. There's a whole bunch of orcs. Like the orcs are the heroes in this game. The figures are detailed. They're hard plastic. They're a little bit bendy. I kind of worry about them though because a lot of the figures have like spindly parts. Like there's a lot of characters that hold spears or halberds or like swords. And it's like I bet, these could break pretty easily. I mean, they're not resin, but I'm nervous about testing the limits. I mean, if this were a retail game that I could just easily replace, like for cheap, I might just try. Just okay, how far can I bend this sword before it actually breaks? It's like okay, just to find out. This one, I'm like, nah, I don't want to try that. The squares are 1 inch by 1 inch, and they actually fit perfectly on a HeroQuest Remake board. So if you're wanting to use these as proxies for HeroQuest Remake 2021 edition and beyond, you could easily do that. The bases are square. Who cares? I don't mind mixing square bases, round bases. I actually prefer square bases now that you ask me. I know you didn't, but yeah. So the designs are fine. The designs though, I mean, there's so many figures. There's like hundreds of figures. There's well over like 100. I forget now the exact count. There's over 150 figures. There's no furniture at all. It's all characters. So there's a whole bunch of heroes that are all orcs. Well, some of them can be NPCs if you want, but you're basically playing a game. You got 4 orcs and they're always green. You could paint those if you wanted, but all the rest of the characters, except for the porks, they're like pigmen. So kind of a nod to the original orcs from Dungeons and Dragons. The original Dungeons and Dragons orcs were like pigmen, basically pig people. They green skinned, but they were pig people. So those are like hot pink. So it's kind of funny. So they're hot pink. The orcs are kind of like a pea green color or like a lima bean color. All the other figures are gray. Well, I think there's one big monster that's green, but all the other characters are gray. It's really, really boring. So it's screaming, paint me, paint me. And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to sit down and paint 150 figures just to play this game. I don't have that kind of drive. Sorry. But I did get my spray paint cans out and I did do some tests. I took one of the dogs and I painted it like a leather brown. And this is like Krylon paint plus primer, satin finish. and it's still curing right now. It's only been like a couple hours. Well, let's see. It's about 10 o'clock now. I did it about 6:30, so I haven't checked to see if it was still tacky last time I checked. The undead, I did it like an ivory kind of color. The elf, kind of like a pastel green kind of color, which is actually the same color as I painted the HeroQuest remake elf, like the female elf, the default female elf. I painted her green instead of red, and I painted, and this is just one color, like a board game piece. Because once that stuff cures, it has a nice finish. I mean, you almost can't tell it's painted. It just feels like that's the color. The barbarian, I did the brick red, which is the same red that I used for the against the ogre horde, like ogre mercenaries. Like I painted them that color because I didn't like the gray. And the human, like the non-barbarian humans. So like I just got one of the peasants. I painted him like a pastel blue. So kind of like an icy blue, kind of thinking of like the Frozen horror miniatures, although a little bit more vibrant. Thanks, Polsky. I appreciate that. Lonely e-girl. Yeah. Obvious bot is obvious. Thank you. Still debating ordering HeroScape. Yeah, so OrcQuest, but the actual gameplay. So all that stuff. So yeah, the miniatures are a little bit boring. I mean, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of variety. I question the durability of them a little bit. But yeah, once I get them in kind of the basic colors, I think that'll be good. The actual gameplay. So I expected, because I was actually only like halfway through the rule book is like 50 pages, like 49 pages. So I was like twice the length of HeroQuest. So I was like about halfway through, and Ribby is just like, yeah, I'll guide you through it. So it was fine. He was pretty good. Even though there's no GM in the game, it's a cooperative game. But I mean, like he took 2 heroes and I took 2 heroes, and he kind of showed me. He let me go first. He showed me a lot of stuff. He's very patient, good teacher. So I appreciate that. The game wasn't that hard to learn though. I think after a while, it was like, okay, I kind of know what I'm supposed to do here. I expected it was going to be like I was playing advanced HeroQuest. Like I expected, like you enter a new room and you put a new tile down like that, and it could just go any direction. Because that's what I am used to with these dungeon crawler games. Hold on, I just gotta grab something to drink here. Getting a little dry. All right, cheers and salute to Dead Gamer. Hope he's doing well. Yeah, so it wasn't that way. Really, what the game is you take these room tiles and you lay them out ahead of time. So you have a formation. It kind of reminds me of Space Crusade, except it's even smaller than that. What takes up so much room on your table are all the darn cards. I mean, think about this. You've got like an index size card for each of your heroes. So I had 2 of those out. Then you've got these little action cards. They're like miniature cards. So kind of like Gloomhaven has those small cards that you use. So you've got like a deck for each hero. So there's like events and there's weapons, and the weapons can have upgrades. And so there's all these like tiny little decks. So you have all these piles of cards on your table. And it seems to take up a huge amount of room. So other games that I've seen that seem to take up a huge amount of room, so like Talisman, especially with the expansions. I'm not saying I want a game where it's just, takes up a tiny amount of room. I mean, HeroQuest has a nice big board, and you can kind of lift up the board and move it if you need to. But with this, it's like the setup time and the clearing the table time is going to take a lot. So the weakness of the game is not the gameplay. The gameplay is fine. The gameplay is actually pretty simple. I mean, it's more complicated than HeroQuest, but it's not anything that you can't handle. I mean, I don't know if like 8-year-olds would be fine playing it, but as an adult, like I usually grumble about having to learn new games. But there's enough familiar things in it from games I played, like HeroQuest, Space Crusade, or even Space Hulk or Kill Team that I played at Gen Con a few times, that I could figure it out. But the setup, I mean, I let Ribby do most of the work. But I mean, as he was talking and as we were playing, I had my own table. Like the camera was pointed at his stuff. I was telling him where I wanted to move the character, and he was moving it. We were rolling digital dice using MentorBot in the Discord. So you've got your attack dice, your defend dice, your badass dice, and it has an order of power. So it's like white is the weakest, then gray, then black. And for badass dice, it's blue for enemies, green for your team because you're working together. There's a mechanic that places the patrols randomly, which is kind of cool. You roll the dice in a box, and then that corresponds to where you place the tiles in the room, and there's like loot and stuff. So I like those little mechanics, and it makes me think of someone who played HeroQuest a lot and games like that a lot, and then just thought of their own ideas and kind of like it spun off into its own thing. Now, of course, I was unsure at first about some of the things, and we made mistakes, and that happens. And it's good for me to see that, like, I'm not the only one who like forgets in the middle of the game. Oh, I was supposed to be doing this all along, and I forgot to do that, or I forgot to explain something, or oh, we didn't do this right. But you still have fun. You still go with it. And the thing about this is, there's no Zargon. I mean, if you're playing HeroQuest and Zargon screws up and nobody calls him on it, the game just keeps going, and nobody, really says anything. It just kind of keeps on going. In this game, it's like, well, if nobody like brings it up, like, oh yeah, we're in the field, we were supposed to roll like an extra white die when we're doing this. It's like, oh well, it just didn't happen then. Or oh, we forgot to do the reaction of the peasant like right after the first attack. It's so, oh whoops. I guess he was kind of easy to defeat, wasn't he? Oh, the next guy will do it. It's the honor system, just like any other game. Because you're playing against the computer. Well, you're playing against the game. But the quest book, you don't have to worry about keeping things secret. It's all just laid out there because you're drawing random cards every turn. So you got these little cards, you got your abilities for each character, and you're getting at the end of your action phase, you're drawing another card. So it's like, well, I can flip one card to move a certain number of squares. So you're not rolling dice to move. And you are drawing another card to attack. But then you could get combo cards. So it's like, oh, I might be able to attack more than once. And you can buy cards later on. So it's like we got most of the way through one quest. So like 5 or 6 rooms were laid out, and we did maybe half of them in an hour. So I'm thinking like, okay, we spent 1 hour we limited ourselves to 2 hours. So we spent like 1 hour just like going over the rules, learning the game. And then, because Ribby had played it before, whereas I hadn't. And in the second hour, we actually played, and we got pretty far, but we could have probably spent another hour and finished it. It's like, oh, that's cool. And then I was going to say there's only like 4 quests, but actually they're multi-part, so there's more than that. And plus, within the 2 boxes, there's other quests because they're expansions. So I forget now exactly how many there are. But actually, I flipped to the last page of the last book just to see what it said. And it said something like, now you can make your own adventures. I was like, aha. See, so they retain that part of HeroQuest where it's like, yeah, just make your own stuff. They don't give you a blank quest map, but it's the same idea. You just arrange the tiles how you want, generate the patrols, decide what numbers you want to put up. There's a threat indicator. The things go from like yellow to orange to red. Now, one of the other flaws we saw, and Ribby pointed this out before I even did, was it's a little hard to tell sometimes orange and red, like the difference between those 2 colors. So if you have poor eyesight, you might have some difficulty. So it would have been nice if they had maybe some other symbol to show you like what these 2 colors are. If you put them side by side, you can figure it out. So you've got colors on the dice, you've got colors on the cards. The cards are really, really small and have a lot of little icons on them. that mean different things. So yeah, higher contrast. So if they released a retail, like an official retail version of OrcQuest, probably what they want to do is redesign the box so it's not so hard to open and divide the stuff up. So probably like what they're doing with HeroScape, like have different packages. Like here's just the basic adventure with the heroes, or here's a box of extra villains, here's a box of extra heroes, here's an expansion that has these adventures in it. You know, make it more manageable, and yeah, put higher contrast colors. Maybe I don't know if stiffer plastic, maybe bendier, more rubbery plastic for the miniatures, just to be on the safe side. Differentiate the factions by color would be good. I'm not saying you have to use my colors, but I mean, you know, you could do brown for rats, gray for dwarves, white for undead, um, red or orange for barbarians, blue for uh, other humans, green for elves, you know, something like that, light, you know, green, and then keep the green for the orcs, and then the pink for the porks. The big monsters, I think I'm gonna make like in metallic or sparkly colors. Those could be anything. But I think if you just assume that it's one thing to assume that your players are going to paint like, you know, 50 figures, but you know, like 200 figures, 150 figures, that's a lot. So you're basically trying to appeal to war gamers who are used to painting giant armies and board game players who just want to play a little quick adventure in 1 or 2 hours. So yeah. Shadows of Brimstone takes up a lot of table space, says Joe Kosher. Well, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, this is one of those games where they give you all the stuff. So they've given you so many cards that it's like a trivia game. They give you a ton of cards because they want it to feel like anything could happen. You're not going to play two games and have the same, oh, I drew the same cards again and again. It's like, no, it's always going to be different. So they do that, and they give you so many figures. Yeah, they're all the same, but I mean, I guess in theory, you could paint every single soldier differently. So you could, like, every enemy you meet is unique. I mean, they could do that. Or you could have a situation where you just get swarmed with enemies. But I had fun playing it. Is there room for role playing in it? Yeah. I mean, the orc that I played as was like a barbarian type orc. So he was just like, he can't open doors. He just smashes through them. So it's kind of funny. It's like he's this brute, you know. And of course, by smashing the door, he alerts all the enemies in the room. It's like, yeah, there's no running away. He's the tank. He's gonna have to fight him. But he could also just crash his way through like tables and chairs and stuff. You know, he just automatically crushes the furniture and he could loot the stuff that's in it. Makes me think of Taz, you know, the Tasmanian Devil from Looney Tunes. Just and he just chainsaws through stuff. I mean, it's kind of funny. So you could ham that up pretty easily. And the game rewards you for attacking enemies from behind because they have like a forward arc and a back arc. So the direction they're facing actually matters. So that kind of it's like, you know, you're role playing as the orcs. They're kind of these bad guys, these monsters. They like to fight, they like to loot, and so they're always sneaking up on people and, you know, stabbing them in the back and, you know, stealing their gold. That's what they do. So it's kind of funny because people always make fun of these old school games saying, "Oh, it's the murder hobo game. You're not heroes, you're murder hobos." This game, you are murder hobos. And guess what? As an orc, that fits perfectly. So ham it up. So, you know, it's kind of tongue in cheek, kind of satirical take, kind of a parody almost of the themes of these games. But I think it's a brilliant idea. So I like the theme, and the deity of the orcs is badass. You know, like you do stuff like you kill an enemy in one attack, and you get a badass point. It's like, oh, you've impressed badass. You know, so you got this little tracker. So it's, again, it's satirical, it's funny. It's like, yeah, you could imagine. Well, from the orcs' point of view, this is the way things are. You know, it's just kind of goofy. And if your guys get killed, you can bring them back, but you have to have a certain number of badass points. Like there's a whole tracker that you go on. So you can actually go, I was thinking, oh, it's victory points, but it's like, no, you can go backwards and spend those points to get special features. So you can buy extra cards. So it's like buying skill cards for your hero or combat cards, or spells. You can get better things. Yeah, the game doesn't take itself too seriously. I mean, there is a plot. There's this character Gorebag, which I don't know. I heard that name before. It's like the most generic orc name you can think of. Gorebag. He's a bag of gore. He's like the mentor of this universe. He tells the story, and it's like, oh, you're trying to fight for the orc nation or whatever. You're trying to, prevent the other factions from defeating the orcs. It's like, yeah, but at the same time, as an individual orc, you're here for the plunder and you're here for the fights. It makes me think of the old lore of the ogres from Against the Ogre Horde in HeroQuest, where, you know, your whole purpose for being is you like to fight, you like to eat, and you like to, plunder. It's like, okay, that's what you do. It's definitely kind of comic. So, yeah. Um, so that's OrcQuest. So I had very positive. I mean, I wouldn't have bought the game in the first place. I wouldn't have spent $200 on the game if I didn't think it was going to be good. But actually getting to the point of like, okay, getting past the intimidation of opening the boxes to trying to organize the stuff, to trying to read all the rules and learn it all. And it's like it was made a lot easier when you have somebody who already knows the game pretty well, who can just kind of take you through it. And I mean, bless him, Ribby has been playing by himself. Uh, you can do that with a party of heroes, but man, it's tough. I know that there's people that play HeroQuest that way. They'll have four heroes and they'll just play solo using the companion app, and they'll play it straight through, an entire campaign that way. It's like, okay, I mean, that could be fun, but it's so much better when you've got people with you. It's so much better to play it with other people. So much more fun. And not just for the banter, but it just is. So like, we would talk to each other like, okay, what strategy should we take here? What do you think? Ribby says the hardest part about solo is keeping yourself honest and not cheating. Well, yeah, that's true too. On the other hand, if it's fun for you, why not? I mean, you hold yourself to that challenge. Either accidentally or well, that's the thing too. You might be playing the game for a while and go, wait a minute, why is I know why it's so easy because I forgot to do this thing. Like when I was playing Space Crusade against myself, I noticed that. Like I was like, man, these fights take forever because I forgot that you don't count armor when you're attacking in melee. So like I played for hours and hours, like, and just bashing each other, and it's like, oh man, I can't beat my armor. It's like, experienced players watching, it's like, ah, facepalm. This guy doesn't realize that's the whole point of attacking somebody in melee is you bypass armor. So it's like, okay. So then once I played with people, like they could remind me, oh, you're forgetting, you got to do this, or oh, you can't actually hit that guy from here, oh, really? Or no, you could shoot that guy. You could shoot him again. You could shoot him right in the face. Like what? I can? I didn't know I could do that. So yeah, you keep each other honest. You keep the game going. It's bad when you fight over the rules. That isn't good. But yeah, if you have people to kind of remind each other, that's helpful. I've gone entire hero phases and forgot to do any event cards. Yeah, if you're missing a vital component of the game, that can diminish the experience. I agree. And it can get tiring too. Like, I think playing with other people gives me more energy. Like, maybe that's just my personality, but I feed off the energy they're putting out. So if they're having a good time, they're cracking jokes, they're, role playing little things or whatever, it's like that keeps me interested. If I'm just playing by myself, I might, my mind starts to wander. I get bored. Walk away from the game. It's not the same. So yeah, there's something to be said about the communal aspect of games that's fun. I have nothing against single player games, but whenever I can, I like to play multiplayer games. It doesn't always have to be like head to head competition. I'm usually not good enough for that to be that interesting anyway, or I'm really good and they're not. So cooperative is cool. I kind of wish there was a GM character, but the way that they put together the self propelled patrols is kind of cool. Ruby says, I prefer to play with others, but my group always ends up back at HeroQuest. Yeah, that's fine. There's only so many hours in the day. I mean, I would like, which is fine. Yeah, I'd like to be able to play more games, but I just don't have that many. I mean, it's like, okay, on Thursdays we do the RantCast. Friday, Saturday, I've set aside to do HeroQuest. So it's like, when am I going to play any other games? Like, I'd have to take a break from one of those games to. I mean, we were playing Space Crusade for a little while on Fridays. We did the OrcQuest on a Tuesday. It's like, okay. And I really wanted to get Amalgamash involved, but he can't play in the evenings. He can play in the mornings. It's like, darn it. So I'd have to take a day off of work because I have the evening free. Like, I don't have to go to work tomorrow until like, or not tomorrow. What am I saying? No, on Tuesdays, like I get done. I work during the day. I get done, and then I've got my whole evening, and then the next day I don't start until noon. So I've got even more time. So like I could stay up late and sleep in. So it works for me. But yeah, I understand people have different schedules. You just got to do what you got to do. Um, I'd have to ask him, but he's got his own schedule. But evenings are not open for him. So I'm thinking like, okay, I could do a Wednesday morning, maybe. But I think he might be doing something on Wednesday. So yeah, that's a good thought. We could ask him. Yeah, because I could do something on a Friday, a Saturday, or a Wednesday morning, or a Tuesday evening. Otherwise, I'd have to take a day off. And who wants to spend their holiday playing HeroQuest with some people from the internet or OrcQuest? I mean, I don't know. If you do, thanks. We'd be happy to have you. I'm sure I could take a day for a morning OrcQuest sesh. Yeah. Well, and then there's Gen Con to think about. Just the thought of trying to drag all that stuff to Gen Con, I'm like, dang, I'd like to, but wow. Of course, with Ribby hosting basically, all I really needed was my two hero sheets and then three three decks of cards because I needed no four. Well, okay, so I needed the the equipment deck for the weapons. I needed my two hero cards and then the action deck for each of those heroes. And then I had the quick reference chart to consult for the rules that I would be forgetting. I had the quest book, but I didn't really need it because Ruby was reading off of it. So all the other stuff he had. I mean, his table was covered. Got my giant game backpack. Well, good for you. So I had a game backpack at Gen Con last year. But honestly, I didn't actually use all that space. I thought I would need it for merch, but they had those bags that you carry. So was carrying this big handbag full of stuff. So that was like my merch bag. On my back, it was I had my digital recorder and microphone, and extra batteries and extra memory in case I needed it for my interviews. And then I had pencil and paper, which I didn't really need. I had some extra HeroQuest cards. I had some D&D dice, which I never used. Otherwise, the rest of the space was just kind of like wasted. I mean, it was there. So I could carry something on my back, but I'm trying to figure out, consolidate something. If I can get something printed out, maybe I could have like a compressed version of HeroQuest that's like smaller. Because I could put the miniatures inside one of those plastic organizer things to carry on a backpack, and then I could have like I don't know if a 6-fold board, like a different version of the board. On the other hand, I know there's going to be people playing HeroQuest there. It's just that if I want to do my own game, I mean, you and I have to meet up. We gotta meet up. So yeah, if you can bring other people with you and bring stuff. Yeah, if you're able to bring OrcQuest, that'd be sweet. I hope nothing gets broken. Oh yeah, the candy trays for OrcQuest are superior to the HeroQuest ones. I mean, they're transparent. A lot of times they have like a cover that goes over it, So I guess it's more like the 2022 HeroQuest box, the redesigned box, where it's like they're just kind of loosely in there, and then there's like a transparent piece that goes over the top so it isn't falling out. So yeah, sure I could. Okay, well, guys, yeah, so I recommend OrcQuest. If you can get it, get it. If you like HeroQuest, if you like games like Advanced HeroQuest or Warhammer Quest, Space Hulk, Kill Team, um, I think if you have played HeroQuest before a lot, you'll appreciate the jokes that are in it, and you could easily adapt a lot of that stuff. And I've seen people do it. People have taken some of the rules from OrcQuest and put them into their own HeroQuest campaigns. Like I might do some of that. Some of those things I think are kind of fun. So if you have that in mind, I think it's worth it. If you feel like you have to paint everything, well, fine, but you could get by just by painting solid colors, just to make it just organize it a little better, make it a little more visually interesting because otherwise it's just your green orcs versus just a big gray army. It's like, okay. So let's talk about TseuQuest now, or TseuQuest as Amalgamash calls it. Shout out to AshQuest on YouTube. So Elverg has been posting most of these coming from Telegram of all places. So Telegram is social media that is it just in Spain or is it in all of Europe? I'm not sure. It's definitely in Spain, but TseuQuest comes from Spain and it's really coming out. Now the question is, will it go to other places besides Spain? Is it not just a big scam? Well, apparently it's real. It's not a big scam, or if maybe it was once a scam, but now they're making good on it. So Cristobal of La Guardia de Morcar on YouTube, apparently he's doing an unboxing like in the next day. So I'm excited about that. I really want to hear what he has to say because he doesn't pull his punches when it comes to approaching this stuff from the standpoint of an old school fan. And TseuQuest or TseuQuest was originally HeroQuest 25th anniversary edition. We know all that story. We've covered in past rantcasts. It is clearly based on HeroQuest, and it relies on nostalgia of HeroQuest to sell itself. So you could easily buy this game, theoretically, and play it with the HeroQuest rules. You could play it with their rules. I'm interested to see what their rules are. It seems like it'd be fully compatible if you wanted it to be. And who's to say you couldn't just import it from Spain? But anyway, let's look at some of these pictures before I just spend all night just speculating. Okay, so here is the factory. Now we've seen pictures like this before of those. It looks like Tupperware containers, or not Tupperware, but plastic totes in the background full of like bags, little Ziploc bags of minis. You got these things in front here, but all these images are taken from Telegram, and Verg is the one that was posting them on HeroQuest fans Discord. So credit to him for those, and then whoever the original person was taking pictures from the factory floor. I mean, you can see the shopping bags. I mean, it's not like super high budget here, but fair enough. So, I mean, if somebody can make an OrcQuest, maybe these guys can make a TseuQuest. So next image. So you've got their assembly line, so to speak. I don't see any Pinkertons rushing in to shut all this down. So hopefully people get their orders fulfilled. Next picture. Okay, more. I've worked in places like this. So yeah, it's like, okay, we need a bag of 26, we need a 25, 24, 23, just keep it going, shift that box down the line, turn that fan on, it's getting hot and sweaty in here. Okay, everybody take a 15-minute break. Okay, we're back, we're going, okay, how many, we got to get these boxes out the door, folks, keep on going. I could just imagine. I'm glad I don't work in that setting anymore, but I have done it, so. So yeah, I assume this is somewhere in Spain they're doing this. Okay, so there you can see the boxes. You guys seen this okay? Yeah, okay. So there's the shopping bags. So they're fulfilling orders. So it's not just, I think at the start people were skeptical. They were like, well, maybe this is just the Game Zone guy or whoever it is just trying to save face. Maybe they're just trying to make some quick cash to pay their court costs, because of the litigation, all that stuff. Maybe they're just trying to look good in front of the judge. Apparently, they're going forward, and it's not just a couple of people getting like, they put a couple of boxes together. I know that I've seen pictures from years ago though. I mean, 2014 is when this started. So this is the 10th anniversary of this project. They've had this stuff apparently just rotting in the warehouse all this time. So it looks like they're moving forward. I mean, assuming these aren't old photos, but people are really getting it. It's not just a couple of influencers. So that poster we've seen before. Yeah, look, look at this. It even says, I didn't look closely enough before. HeroQuest 25th. There it is. Sweet. I would love to have that. That's an awesome looking poster. I love that. Just, gushing a little bit. These look like film canisters, but these are actually, I've seen the video where they showed it. It's like a wheel and it has like molds inside it and it extrudes the miniatures. I think there's like two halves, if I remember correctly. Like they pull it off and then they pop the figures out and then they assemble them if needed. So those are the minis. Yeah, HeroQuest 25th. So that's definitely what it is. There's can you see it? Like the different colors of plastic. I'm not sure what. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we covered that in the other one. It's resin with metal weapons. Okay, more of the platters, those miniatures. So this is the whole assembly. I wonder, it might just be just this one factory, this one warehouse. Okay, here's what I wanted to look at. So FR, France, GB, Great Britain, AL. Not sure what that stands for. But Albania? What country do we think that is, or what language? I'm just guessing that these are, of course, are they legally allowed to ship these out though? Because one of the things people were saying is, and there's the translation issue that well, maybe they only have the rights in Spain, but it looks like the stuff's ready to go to other places if they want to. GBAL, Algeria, Albania, Australia. No, I don't know. I'm guessing the GB is English, the FR is French, ES, España, so like Spanish, Spain. I'm not sure who this guy is. Is this the guy? I don't see any handcuffs on him. I shouldn't joke about that. Uh, maybe he's just somebody in the factory working, or is this one of the fans coming to pick up his box? I have no idea. I don't know what the Game Zone guys look like. I don't know their names. I don't know how many there are. So here, okay, so you can see bases, lots of pieces, different colors, organized. There was another picture. Oh, here it is. Yeah, here's the picture. Yeah, so these are obviously unassembled, but look how they have kind of they almost look like they're made out of clay. So there's some type of resin. Those are the barrel-shaped dice. Wait a minute. That looks like a 3D printed board. Doesn't that look like the one that I got as a gift from Mercantile from Theodore and Maitreya? That looks like their 3D printed. Well, I mean, they got it from the Dragon's Rest. Um, and Cults 3D for the figures. But yeah, those walls look very familiar. So does the ground that they're on. That's not part of this series. So I'm assuming then that this is somebody on Telegram who has a 3D printed board and they just put the figures on top of it. Because the board that you get with this is a cardboard. I mean, it's just like HeroQuest. You open up the box, you've got a GM screen, you've got a board, a full size game board. You've got cards, you've got dice, you've got tiles. It's HeroQuest. It just renamed because they can't use the name HeroQuest. Okay, so comments from Verg here. Yeah, thanks for sharing those images. I really appreciate it. There were images of those boxes with FRGB SP labels from 2016. So yeah, they've been there forever. Okay, good to know. Yeah, I was thinking it wasn't just my imagination. Like you can find videos and it's like, yeah, it's been here the whole time. So they've been sitting in there for 10 years. Hopefully they age like a fine wine. There's still question as to whether there's enough for all backers. Oh yeah, because it was a crowdfunded thing. It's hard to gauge. Yeah, it's a big box, but is it a big box of big boxes? Is it a big box of plastic boxes to hold minis as they're produced? Well, it's not HeroQuest, it's TseuQuest, so they can do whatever they want. Yeah, sure. As far as if they can ship out or not, look at your source from those images. That's from the reporting website, not Telegram. That image came from La Casa DL website. Oh, okay. Sorry, Verg. Maybe I misread what you were saying there. I thought these were from Telegram. The Telegram ones are people posting their own unboxings. Is that right? I don't want to misquote you there. Let me find it again. Yeah, we're talking about on HeroQuest fans Discord, and in the world of HeroQuest, not much is happening. We've had just more Jungles of Delthrak sightings, but I mean, no new information really. But as far as TseuQuest, oh, okay. All right, let me bring up some of these other images here. I don't have Telegram. I can't really access it, but there. That is one of the cards. Okay, so yeah, there's little wheels embedded inside the card, so you can turn it like a pop-up book, I guess, so that you can track the points on the character sheet, the character card. Those tokens that show money, that's not part of it. What is that from? I've seen that before and I'm already forgetting what it's from. And this is a 3D printed board. So that's a fan. Okay. I think you have images open in multiple tabs. I do. Some of the images come from Telegram. The ones you're showing now are from La Casa de El. So the House of El. Image came from La Casa DL. The writer has been using the 3D printed board for all three of his news posts. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Yeah. Just misunderstood. But yeah, I have that same 3D printed board. So I just thought that was cool. But yeah, that's not part of TseuQuest. It's a HeroQuest board, but obviously it's compatible. The board is slightly altered from the one. Oh, I see. La Casa del. All right, I'm just going to copy the link in the chat. Yeah, there's the URL if you're interested. Looking yourself. Okay, let me get some more images here. Okay, translate. TseuQuest. Ah, here we go. Know in detail the printed components of level 3. Okay. Yeah, I hadn't actually looked closely at this before. A few days ago, received a copy of the table game TseuQuest, a project that was born in 2014 within the platform Lanzanos, and that became an odyssey for patrons. This is translated. You can read more about the topic in this first article. Little by little, it is reaching the first buyers in the face of the concern of many who, after 10 years, want to see what they're going to receive. We have decided to show in detail everything that is at level 3. Oh, like a stretch goal? Those who don't know, level 3 of TseuQuest, which changed its HeroQuest name 25 for copyright reasons with Hasbro and mutated into the word quest inverted, was the highest option that patrons could select during the campaign. Its initial value 10 years ago was 110.0 plus shipping. Is that euro? Although today the reduced version, which would be level 1, is listed in stores at 134 degrees. And looking at all 3 extras of the 3, there could be typos in this, that could be brought on the Game Zone page to expand it. The current price amounts to more than 300 euros. Oh, wow. Fundador. In this article, we will display all content in detail. Okay. I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, but you can check it out. I'll post it in the chat there. The coins are 3D printed ones too. You can get them on Etsy. Yeah, that's where I saw them. You're right. Etsy. Yep. And other places. They have Zargon and the Realm lion symbols on them. Fair enough. Yeah, so there's lots and lots of fan made stuff out there that's free, and then stuff that people are just flat out selling. And as long as they either don't sell it in big enough batches for Hasbro's lawyers to notice, or they change the name so it's clear that it's just a compatible HeroQuest compatible unofficial thing, like Sunday Quest or something like that, then they get away with it. Resin. Okay, can we get a closer look at that a little bit? Let's get some items. The cards are an interesting shape. They're okay. Oh, I can get close. Oh, we can get a little bit close up on these. And I'm not going to say more, but there is a translation project going on. Not going to say any more than that. But it's more for reporting purposes. If there is an English version they're going to be selling, I suppose it would be nice as fans to just kind of know, like, what are we paying for? Is this worth investing in? So it's very valuable to get those reviews, to get those fan unboxings, and it's very valuable to get pictures like this and translations. So yeah, you can see the 3D board. That's pretty cool. But yeah, the 3D board is not part of TseuQuest. Monsterpedia. I'm just going through this here. Yeah, you can read the article on your own, but yeah, I'm kind of looking at this for the first time. So if you've already read this, then you already know. I don't mind the art style. I mean, it's kind of got its own character. I really like the alchemy symbols on the magic. I mean, I did my own little side demagikified project for HeroQuest. You know, to say, well, what if you wanted to play as the wizard, but just not have it be magic, have it just be like ancient science? And I just thought, oh, alchemy. I looked up the symbols, I designed the cards, I did all this stuff, and it's like, oh, they did the same. They had the same idea. That's cool. You know, just kind of a reskin. So that's neat. And they call it primordial chaos instead of dread or chaos. So it looks like there's bad guy magic as well. And again, I'm zooming through this. So if I say something, it's like, oh, everybody knows that. It's like, well, sorry. Okay, and then the dice results. I see that on the cards, the barrel dice. Because you've got all the values, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but then you've also got if the die lands on its edge, it's something else. on either side. I mean, I assume it's still patterned after the combat dice and the movement dice from the original game, but we can't assume everything is one-to-one. I think they have their own rules, and I've heard that there's optional rules as well. I haven't gone through it all. Interesting that there's that little hole in the GM screen. Oh, I've never seen the other side of it before. That's new to me. I assume just telling you all the rules. So when you're playing as the evil warlock, the evil wizard. So that's what that looks like. Okay. Oh, yeah, I should be. Well, some of these I can't click on. Don't have bigger pictures. Okay. Okay, so air, fire, water. So they called it aqua instead of hydro, ignis instead of pyro, and air instead of aero. Terra, I called mine Terra. But yeah, there's more than just the three. There's actually more options. That's cool. Okay, same thing there. Just checking which ones I missed. Equipment. Yeah, no, it's like potions, treasures. See, again, if you're familiar with HeroQuest already, classic HeroQuest, this game would probably be pretty easy to learn once you get past the language barrier. And this is kind of what I expected a remake of HeroQuest to be, rather than a straight up reskin, which is what Hasbro Avalon Hill gave us. Yeah, you punch these out and you put them inside the other cards. So you've got to like assemble the cards. From the videos I've seen, the cards are pretty floppy. They're pretty large. So there's maybe a concern about durability. I mean, if you're going to try to sleeve these cards, that could be a problem. I was thinking about OrcQuest with those little tiny cards. Ribby had all his sleeved really nicely. I was like, oh, cool. But he said that they're slightly the wrong size, like they're stretched too much. So if you're trying to sleeve these, I don't know. Maybe they could sell you sleeves. Because Game Zone sells all kinds of game stuff. Maybe they sell sleeves too. 16 extra heroes. Wow. I know there's male and female versions of all the heroes. So I mean, some things are they had the same idea as the Avalon Hill developers. But it's a lot of stuff that you could imagine, homebrewers wanting to add to the game. Like, yeah, this is cool, but wouldn't it be cool if we had even more spells or even more heroes? Or what if we had little trackers built into the cards? Or what if the dice had like more options than just, the six sides? With regard to the rules in the Volume 1 campaign, the PDF of both can be downloaded in the Telegram groups dedicated to HeroQuest. We recommend you see the detailed breakdown, all the thumbnails, and make up the slot. So if I click on this, it's probably not going to go anywhere. Or view in group. I don't know anything about Telegram, so hopefully I don't break my computer doing this. Oh. I don't think I can get in. Sorry, guys. Okay. I guess my adventure ends here. So that's TseuQuest. So I would say if they're finally releasing it to the public, that's great. I know there's a lot of pissed off customers, so doing right by them by actually releasing the product they paid for. I feel bad for anybody that's like moved away in the last 10 years. Like, what are they going to do? Are they going to skip trace people and try to find them, track them down? Here's your copy of the game you paid for. Stop suing us. If you died waiting for the game, that's rough. So, TseuQuest. Yeah. I don't think I'd pay 300 euros for it. But if it was like 200 or less, I mean, that's a lot to pay for a game that basically gives you what HeroQuest has. But it still looks like It's as if you're buying HeroQuest plus a bunch of expansions, is my thought. Because what did I hear? There was like 40 quests or something, even if they're digital. And then like 16 heroes. There's clearly more magic than in the base game. So, I mean, if you spend 100 and let's say 135 on a remake HeroQuest box, that's you're paying full price for it, which I probably wouldn't. Plus an expansion for like 45. Yeah, yeah, I could justify it for like 200. 300, no. 200, sure. I mean, I probably wouldn't buy it right away. I'd wait until it was actually available in English and I didn't have to pay, through the nose for shipping. But I mean, I think I paid like 206 or something total for OrcQuest, and I got a ton of content for that. So yeah, I'm not the kind of person that I don't have a game shelf. Like I need to get one because it's starting to get out of hand. Um, oh yeah, I meant to answer this comment earlier. We were talking about HeroScape. When the Age of Annihilation HasLab campaign failed, they were going to bring back HeroScape. I just went to Board Game Geek and I just looked for a good deal on the Rise of the Valkyrie, the old game, and I got one for a decent price, um, well under my budget. And I just went to like dollar stores and I picked up those Mattel Micro Minis. So I got myself like the Incredibles, Jurassic World, Transformers, um, DC, superheroes, Justice League. I just Kung Fu Panda. I picked those up because I knew that there was like fan rules out there for like different factions, and the figures are just about the right size. Masters of the Universe, another one, and they're already painted, and it's like those are my armies. They've got the ones in the box. Got the Krav Maga guys and agents, Viper, whatever. I got the orcs and the elves and commandos and space Vikings, samurai, mutants, robots. They're already in the box. But then I've got all these other characters, and I'm fine. I don't need to buy HeroScape. Now, if the price came down eventually, would I get it? Maybe I would. But even the original HeroScape, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to go track down every single expansion because there's just tons of them. Tons of them. I mean, it's like a gotta catch 'em all situation. It's like collecting magic cards. I mean, the see again that we're talking about different models of board game. So with Warhammer, they want you to buy so that you can come up with the best army so you can fight against somebody. And then every few years they change all the armies around so that you are going to buy more miniatures to assemble a new army. Magic the Gathering, what do? You buy decks, you blind buy these bags, mystery boxes, you open them up, rip them open and get different cards to build your perfect deck. Or maybe you have a couple of different decks so that you can compete against other people. And so there's always incentive to like buy more because you might improve your army or have a different configuration of army for a different, opponent. Same thing with HeroScape. They want you to buy so you can have all these different, armies and things. Now, I do like the HeroScape model that they're putting out, through Renegade Studios now that Hasbro has farmed out to them. They're using, it looks like almost all of the designs from the campaign are being reused. Thank goodness. So all that hard work is not going to waste. So, and Carmine and all the guys, Craig Van Ness, that did all that work with their teams, Renegade is using those assets that they've developed. There, you can buy ones that are just primed with washes. That's it. Or I guess primed with a wash. And then you can buy ones that are fully painted. And I think it's only like $20 or $30 more for the fully painted ones, and they're supposedly like good quality paint. It's not just, they slapped it on there. So I think that's a cool idea. And you can buy just a box that has like 2 armies in it. Everything you need, a base game, but it's just 2 armies instead of like 5 armies, like the HasLab, the Battle of the 5 Armies, the HasLab version. It's like too much, for 250. That's pretty pricey for a game. I think that's pricey for a game, especially if they expect you to paint everything. I mean, it's like that's like years worth of hobby right there. If I just want to get a game, take it out of the box, play it with my friends, it's all ready to go. I'd rather do that. So they have like these, like a big box that has a lot of figures in it. They have like an expansion that has like another couple armies in it or factions. I mean, some of these are just like little squads, little, like it's a skirmish game. It's a war game. It's a skirmish game. HeroScape is. So you could have a whole bunch of like factions that are all working together, I guess. I don't quite understand all of the advanced rules because I've only played the basic rules so far. So I could be just talking nonsense. But it looks like you can get a lot of variety. So right now, the new one that's coming out in September, they have, so I'm sure we'll see it at Gen Con. They have the base game, they have an expansion for armies, they have an expansion for terrain. So like plants and extra like um, tiles, because it's all based on plastic hex tiles for terrain tiles that you can stack up to create elevation. So it looks like the new game is definitely on the right track, because if you're one of these old school HeroScape fans from like the early 2000s and you've still got all your stuff, you can buy the new stuff to just add on top of what you've already got. You can just buy the components you want. If you're starting from scratch, you can buy the base game and you've got some basic stuff, but then you can also add, booster packs. But I mean, eventually what they're going to do is like, yeah, they sell like, the generic characters. So you can buy more of those to build a bigger army. They could sell heroes. So there's, the rare, whatever, unique characters. So you only buy one of those. And I suppose as kids, probably I'm sure there's kids that would do this, is like everybody has their own set and they just get together, have a sleepover, and everybody just combines their sets together. Write your name on the bottom so that you remember whose is who. Um, I think there was even like little stickers you could put on the bottom, like a little white sticker. You could write your initials on it so that you knew at the end of the evening, like, okay, which ones were yours, which ones were mine, because they're all the same. But you could combine your sets together to make an even bigger terrain. Because the fun of HeroScape is you build the block city, then you play the miniatures game with the dice. So I can see that. But yeah, will I be buying the new HeroScape? Probably not anytime soon. I'll probably wait till the price comes down. I don't know. I'm kind of waiting to see some of the other figures that they release. But yeah, hopefully it's enough of a success that everybody that wanted it can get it. Because everybody got refunded their money, or they didn't have to actually pay for the HasLab campaign because it failed. Let's see. Oh, sorry guys. I know we've gone kind of long, but I do want to look up or display a couple more images. This is of TseuQuest. Again, credit to Verg. Okay, so that image there, the instructions, you kind of see there. So it folds out. Small text, a lot of information on there. You see if there's anything else I missed. Are these the Telegram pictures? Let's see. These might be Telegram pictures. So these are the cards again. Yeah, that background is somebody's tablecloth or whatever. Primordial Chaos spells. So I think these are fan unboxings again. So these are the Primordial Chaos deck cards. Okay, so this is for La Casa de El again. I like that picture. I mean, it's clearly inspired by HeroQuest, but it's not 100% the same. It's their own spin on it, modernization. Okay, so this is Verg again. This was from a few days ago, and let me know if any of this is updated. Some really interesting quote. Some really interesting tidbits in here. You'll need to translate to English. Okay, there's the URL. Therefore, they indicate they're sending emails to the people who made the exchange at the time to give them the option again. Now that both products are on the market, so TseuQuest and Hasbro HeroQuest. If they decide to go ahead with the deal, one of the 3,000 HeroQuest that Hasbro allocated for it will be sent to them, and if not, the amount they paid for the change will be refunded. Wow. Okay, well that's certainly a step in the right direction. That's definitely, if they follow through, that's definitely the company doing right by the fans. So that's good news. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, sucks that it took 10 years, um, but it's good news. So at least people will get what they paid for. Either they decided they didn't want to wait any longer and they just want the Avalon Hill Hero Quest, boom, or they wanted this one that was being advertised all along and they're going to get that one. So, okay. All right, guys. Well, I'm tired. I don't know about you, but it's been a good show. Thank you for everybody that contributed. Appreciate it. And we can bring this rantcast to a close. If there's big news tomorrow, well, we'll just have to pick it up the next time. But the usual plan for this week, tomorrow, Friday, on HeroQuest fans, we'll be playing Mage of the Mirror once again. Getting into the final two quests where hopefully get some heroes tomorrow. 2 to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on HeroQuest fans, twitch.tv/HeroQuest fans. Saturday, 7 to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, playing Rise of the Dreadmoon. Now, I know previously we were going 6 to 10. I shortened it to 7 to 9. I think it's a lot easier for me to play longer on Fridays than it is on Saturdays. So I think for now we'll just keep that schedule the way it is. But I'll let you guys know if we change it. It's all based on what we can do. So yeah, we'll definitely be streaming HeroQuest this weekend. Hope to see you there. And we can get Karl Casey at White Bat Audio back on the music and see who we can raid. RantCast.